Hi, everyone. It's Terry Bruce, and this is another 10-minute nonprofit evaluation tips. Now, this month, we're talking about the conditions that need to exist within your organization in order for your evaluation ecosystem to flourish. And we're talking high-level strategic planning and organizational development and systems thinking skills and mindsets that need to exist at the top of your organization and throughout it in order for your organization to truly tackle evaluation and be successful at it. And that goes from simple evaluation of doing, a little 5-question customer satisfaction survey up to impact evaluation and much more rigorous and sort of scientific evaluation. But even getting started with evaluation, if you want to create an initiative that's going to stick and that you're going to stick with and that's going to flourish and be successful, these are some of the initial things that you've got to tackle as an organization and make sure you really have a handle on. Now, this week, I want to talk about consistency. And this is the topic that usually gets rotten cabbages thrown at my head when I'm working with an organization. This is the topic that everyone hates the most. And it's tied to the one a couple of weeks ago where we were talking about being worried about losing the magic and the secret sauce. And this move towards consistency often feels to staff like a step in pinning that butterfly under glass and doing away with the magic. Organizations, especially very small, fairly new, very agile organizations, hate this topic. So I'm warning you right now that this is not going to be popular. I know it's not going to be popular with you, and when you take it back to your staff, it's not going to be popular with them. I wish you to consider for a moment, please, if you will. Here we have, consider this 2 job candidates or 2 organizations that you could fund or make a donation to. We have entity A and entity B. And this is their performance over the last, let's say, 6 months, right? So what we have here is a bullseye, a target, and let's say that these are, archery shots, or we could consider it a plotting of performance against a graph. Right. And the goal here is to get a bullseye in the center of the target. And here we see each entity's last 6 weeks, months, projects, whatever it is, of performance and how they have done. And I want you to consider, so we've got B has all their results here, A's got all their results here. Consider for a moment, which of these 2 entities would you support or want? If these were 2 job candidates, which job candidate would you hire? If these were 2 organizations that you could fund or support, who would you give your money to? Would you give it to A or B? And if you're watching this with a group, you can pause the video right here, discuss amongst yourselves, come up with a vote, and then resume playing. If you're here watching by yourself, I'm just going to give you a second to think about that. All right, you've had a second. When I pose this question to organizations and groups that I'm working with around evaluation and starting evaluation capacity building, almost always they vote for A. They say that A is the better entity and the one that they would put their money on and want to support. The reasoning usually is that A has had a perfect bullseye. They have gotten a perfect result, a perfect score, completed a project perfectly at least once, and they've come close twice, and then they've done okay, like a C average over here, and then they had one big outlier. Versus B has never even come close to hitting the bullseye in the center. Unfortunately, A is not the correct choice here. Now, if you're pushing back against that and you're saying, well, Terry, there's some data missing, you are correct. And we're going to come back to this example in a future month. But for this example and this conversation, and with the data that you have at hand right now, B is actually the better bet. And most people are astounded and they go, what now? How could that be? B has never done well even once. Here's the thing. 1,000 monkeys with typewriters, given infinite amount of time, in theory, could compose the completed works of William Shakespeare due to sheer random probability, just the probability of mashing keys. They are going to, at some point in an infinite time span, mash the correct sequence of keys completely randomly to start spelling sentences, and those sentences eventually will equal the completed works of William Shakespeare. It's similar to how pi, if we compute pi to infinite decimals, it contains every number in existence, right? Your birthday, my 8th grade locker combination, every combination of numbers that has ever been and ever will be contained just due to sheer random probability. A's performance is all over the place. A has been wrong, 100% wrong, as often as they were right? They got one bullseye and they got one that's almost off the chart completely, like just so wrong. I can't even count this. This is a 0 and this is 100%, which means their average is a 50% right there, right? They have been wrong as often as they have been right. They have laid a duck egg as often as they have hit a home run. If this was your employee's performance, you'd be like, there is no consistency here. You are a wild card. You are successful as often as you fall flat on your face. Now we could say, well, maybe A takes more chances or takes more risks, or maybe this is performance over time. Maybe this was initially and they've gotten better, but we don't have that data. We don't have timestamps for this. We don't have information about the difficulty of the projects or the attempts. All we have is just looking at performance and accuracy. A is a wild card. There is nothing to suggest from this performance plotting that A's performance is based on skill. It could be sheer luck. A could be blindfolded and just throwing darts at a dartboard for all we know, and they happened randomly 3 times to hit in the center or close. B, on the other hand, hits the exact same spot pretty much every single time. Like this is a tight cluster and it's just right in the same spot. We can say, therefore, B is consistent, and that consistency comes from skill. B can hit the same, spot at the same strength, the same way every single time. Is B the best at it? No. Is B hitting a home run? No. But because B has consistency, they have skill. They show skill, and we can improve skill. We can't improve luck, but we can improve skill. We can send B for some training. We can find out maybe, maybe B is using a set of darts that are faulty, and if we get them a higher set of darts, that are more weighted accurately, then their scoring would go up, to continue with the metaphor. But we can provide training and mentoring and skills and resources to help B now start incrementally improving their performance. A, there's nothing in the world over here that's going to help this. It's just luck. So this often, I see this over and over again, is the first thing you start looking at with evaluation is when you start realizing all of your performance and going back to that magical secret sauce thing where you start going, oh, our anecdotal evidence of our home runs, we're starting to realize there's no consistency. Those are far and few between. There are a few highlight stories, and there's nothing to prove that we were the cause of those outcomes. It could have just been that those people would have had those outcomes even if we hadn't been involved. Those people just had the magic ingredients for success, or there was outside influences. So that's the first thing is looking at, and that evaluation can do for you is start showing that your results are the basis of skill and your program design and the work of your staff, and not luck or despite your organization. But more importantly, and the reason I'm bringing this up, is your organization has to be consistent in the way that it's implementing evaluation. You can't collect data once and call it a day. You got to collect that data every single time, every single cohort. If we're doing customer satisfaction survey, you need to collect that customer satisfaction survey after the end of every class that it applies to. You can't collect it once and go, oops, we forgot. Oops, we got busy. This is why organizations hate this topic, because they're like, well, whoa now, Terry. Evaluation is something extra we're doing. It's not our work, and delivering on programs is the thing that we need to do first and foremost. And if we get busy and we didn't have time to collect the data or evaluate and not analyze the data, produce the reports this month, tough noogie, like that is secondary. Tough noogie to your evaluation endeavors is what I'm going to say to that, because first of all, without consistency, you're not going to be able to prove anything. You can't say, well, in June, we had great outcomes, and then we didn't collect outcomes for 2 more years. June could have been a one-off, right? It's not showing a pattern. It's a snapshot in time. In June, you were great. In May and July, you might have been terrible. Nobody knows because you didn't collect the data. Additionally, you can't make any improvements. You can't incrementally start making improvements to the places where you are not strong if you don't have consistent data to show what is weak, what's strong, what's random chance. Like, you need that consistency. I understand, having worked in nonprofits for over 20 years, like, nonprofits are often a bucking bronco, right? Everybody's just holding on by the seat of their pants, just trying not to fly off. Things are moving fast. Everything is being bootstrapped. It's being held together with, chewing gum and duct tape. And we're all wearing too many hats. We have too much work to do. And it's really hard to find the capacity to do something like evaluation day in and day out on a consistent basis. But I can guarantee you, I will give you $1 million. You will not be able to get anywhere with your evaluation if you do not build consistency in. And going back to that change management chart we talked about last week, for instance, that time commitment piece, there's a reason I added that as an additional column that you don't frequently see in many of the others. It's assumed to be under the action plan. But as I said, I've seen too many organizations build action plans that involve the breakdown of the steps, possibly even staff assignments, and then a complete inability to hit the deadlines for each step of the evaluation. We're going to collect these evaluations at the end of every class, and we're going to produce a report every month, and we're going to produce a report every quarter that we're going to share with the board and with outside partners. And those deadlines just get missed and missed and missed, and you get nowhere. And you just kind of get on this treadmill of good intentions, but don't actually get liftoff with your evaluation. Number one is almost always a lack of consistency. And people in staff are going to push back really hard. Again, we have a lack of capacity, we have a lack of resourcing, we have a lack of skills to do this. And also, this starts to feel like you're taking away the magic, and where consistency is sort of the opposite of that, like grassroots, energetic, agile, free form, completely flat lateral organization, right? Like, consistency is kind of like, now we're in a factory and we feel like we're hammering widgets out on the conveyor belt. There's a happy medium, as with all things, but until you can manage consistency and not kill the magic of your organization while you're implementing consistency, I can guarantee your evaluation is not going to go anywhere. You're going to just set a lot of money on fire, a lot of time and staff resourcing on fire, doing ad hoc, one-off sort of things, but it's not going to amount to anything. I know, that was a bummer. I don't have a happy note to end on. This is, I guess, like the dire warning of, like, that's the number one thing your organization is going to have to tackle, is building capacity to be consistent. Now, I certainly have lots of ideas about how to do that and how to tackle that, and I'm going to have a secret resource for you at the end of this month, so make sure you come back the last week of the month to hear what that resource is. In the meantime, I would love if you have any questions, if you have suggestions or experience building consistency in an organization that was sort of organization A and just sort of all over the place. I would love to hear about those. Please share your comments on this blog post with myself and other practitioners who are desperately looking for some ideas and resourcing on building that practice. All right, well, that is it for this week. Join me next week where we'll investigate another one of these core systems change and change management components that needs to be present in order for your evaluation work to take root.